Honeybee Honey's channel. I'm going to talk to you today about a combination of things, but mostly checkerboarding is the message I want to get across. There seems to be a lot of misunderstanding about checkerboarding. So what I'm going to do today, I have to checkerboard this hive, and I'm going to open them up and I'm going to kind of explain to you what I'm doing, because there's a few different reasons you would checkerboard a hive. And the reason I'm doing it today is because I have to cull some comb. There's some comb that's extremely old in here, and I'll show you why I need to get rid of it in a second here. But let me open them up and start explaining. Checkerboarding is basically what people refer to when they think about taking frames of foundation and intersplicing them in the hive. And basically it's every other comb, provided it's a good strong hive. So you can do that. You can see this hive's pretty strong, but they're not as strong as they could be, because the comb, some of this comb is 20, 30, or 40 years old. Very, very old. The main thing is it's older than 1998, which is in my area when we really got hit bad with the mites. So this has had apistan in it, and check mite, and menthol, and thymol, and max, and apivar, all the treatments that that you can treat mites with. So we're going to take a look at one of the combs in here, and we are going to checkerboard, but we're going to checkerboard because I want to get rid of some of this old comb. And this first frame probably will tell you why. Okay, that is basically a shotgun pattern brood. So you can see a lot of the brood, it's not a solid pattern. This hive has requeened 3 times since June of last year, and just recently in the fall they requeened again. They keep doing that because brood keeps dying. They clean the cell out, the queen lays an egg, it dies again. So the comb is old enough where it's probably got some disease in there, and it's hazardous to the brood. So I want to get rid of that old comb, and I'm going to do it by checkerboarding. If I were to take it all away from them all at once, they'd have a really rough time. And it's also important to note that the hive body below, the bottom hive body, is not that big of a problem. It's the upper one that is. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that we don't take the queen, because I'm actually going to be removing these frames from service. So I'm going to shake the bees off and remove them from service. Right now I'm just trying to find the queen. I started basically in the middle. This frame has good bee space. I started in the middle, saw a few eggs over here, a few eggs here. They all were surrounded by eggs that had hatched. On this frame, I saw right away a patch of eggs right here in the center. Hopefully the camera, William, you can come in on this. Right in the center here, a patch of nothing but eggs, and then of course you can see kind of a spotty brood pattern here. So there's the queen. You can zoom in on that, William. See her? Yep. There's the queen. So I'm going to catch her in a queen catcher, just so I know she's safe. And then we're going to do our checkerboarding. Okay, so the queen's buried down in there. This thing enables you to kind of dig through there. Okay, so she's in there. And all I'm going to do now, for the time being, is hang her down in between a couple of frames. And then I'll explain to you what I'm going to do. So she was on this frame right here. There's another frame on the ground over here, which I'll pick up now that I have my frame rest. And if you back up just a little bit, William, the other camera. So what I'm going to do is the frame that she was on, I'm going to keep there because she had eggs there. So I'm going to keep this frame, but frames on every other side of it I'm going to put frames of foundation in. We're checkerboarding this hive to cull frames. Basically, we're taking frames out of service. So that's one of the reasons that you'll checkerboard. Now, let's talk about checkerboarding just for a second. Why checkerboard? Why put the frame of foundation in between every other frame? And the reason is you want to get your frame pulled right. So if you do it with a honey frame, you can see here that the brood is basically two sides of comb that are the length of a bee. That's as far as it's going to go. So when you checkerboard frames, when you take this frame out, actually I'm going to take this one out too, when you take brood frames out, and you put a frame of foundation in between them, this is with any type of checkerboarding that you do, the bees are going to pull that foundation so basically I have this, come get a close up there, William. Okay. I have a frame of, this has brood on it, now foundation and brood. So they're going to pull this frame here out to the optimum size, whereas if you do it in a honey super, bees don't care how deep a honey super frame is. They don't care at all. So if this was honey and this was honey, they'll pull this honey out as far as they can, and then you'll get a little tiny frame of honey in between. So this checkerboarding really is basically a way for you to make sure that they pull this frame correctly in a Langstroth hive, just like a normal natural hive, and that it gets pulled correctly. So this is the frame she was on. I'm going to go every other frame, and again I'm taking these out of service. So what that basically means is that I'm going to shake the bees back into the hive. Now another reason to checkerboard is to split a hive that you're worried about swarming. In that case, you're going to take the frame with the bees on it, every other frame, and instead of shaking the bees off back into the hive, you're going to keep them and you're going to put them directly into another hive body. And you're just going to keep it that way. Now if you do it that way, what you don't want to do is checkerboard inside the new hive body. And the reason you don't want to do that is because as a rule you're going to have a bee decline basically for some time, a decline in the bee numbers, and they won't be able to cover all the brood. You're going to have about a 3-week period in the new split, if they're raising their own queen, where there are no bees hatching out. I'm going to try to release the queen here. Does she go down? Oh, there she is. She's right on the bottom of it. On the outside. There, she just went down. Oh no, she's right there. Okay. So I released the queen, so I know she's safe in there now. Move this out of the way. And now I can see that my checkerboarding. So there's 3 reasons to checkerboard. There's checkerboarding so that you don't just, destroy a hive right away, and if you want to cull the comb, you checkerboard. Like I'm doing here. So I'm basically taking frames out of service. There's splitting a hive, so it's a combination of splitting a hive and checkerboarding. And then there is the biggest reason that checkerboarding was invented in the first place was to relieve congestion in the brood space. So whether you're splitting or you're doing this, type of checkerboarding where you're culling frames, whether you're doing that or the other, you're relieving congestion in the brood nest, and you're making sure that they have room to expand and that they don't swarm. So it's a swarm prevention tool because you're expanding the brood nest. So those are the three reasons to checkerboard. If you checkerboard up on a honey super, you're not going to relieve congestion in the brood nest. So you won't be achieving the goal of checkerboarding, which is to relieve congestion in the brood nest. It's also a way to rotate comb, which is basically what I'm doing. I'm rotating comb here. And you really want the checkerboarded frames in between brood frames. So there was brood on here and all these other frames. The one I just shook had some honey in it. And this has honey in it. So I'm going to put one more checkerboarded frame in there, because what you don't really want to put it between two honey frames, because then they'll just pull those others out. This is a honey frame that's not capped. So what they'll do is they'll pull this frame out further than normal, and then you'll get a little skinny checkerboarded frame if there's no brood in there whatsoever. And this has capped honey down there, so I'm safe to do it there. And then what I'll do is I'll just come back in a month or so once they've pulled all of these frames, and I'll do the same thing over again, except with the opposite frames. And in that way I've basically rotated comb in this hive body, and I've gotten fresh comb. And again, remember, the reason I'm rotating the comb here is because the comb is not good. It's got a shotgun brood pattern, and it's not because of a bad queen. She's put eggs in every one of those cells that she can, but the brood dies, the bees end up cleaning the cell again, and she lays another egg in there. So about 40% of the brood, I would say, aren't hatching into adult bees. So you're losing about 40% of her capacity. So the hive is weaker than normal, but you can see they're not weak in that sense. So I basically got 4 of the 10 frames in there. In another month I'll come back and get another 4. The frames on the end are mostly for honey storage. I'll probably leave them at least until next year or something. We'll just see how it goes. But that's checkerboarding.